In my past life, the three rising stars in the literary, music, and art worlds, including myself, got caught up in a plagiarism scandal and were stigmatized for good. All the works we released could be found on the work pages of the talented daughter of the Serafina family, all of which were published 3 days earlier than ours. A flood of online violence and huge compensation claims came crashing down on us. I was abandoned and by my parents, became infamous, and was even driven to death by debt collectors, her admirers, to avenge her, poisoned and silenced the rising star in the music world and severed the tendons of the rising star in the art world. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the night before the talented daughter became famous. In this life, I directly took down my popular new book and turned a deaf ear to the online abuse. I wholeheartedly dragged the two rising stars from the music and art worlds to a mountain villa, where we spent every day traveling and having fun, and playing du jeu, a popular card game when we were free. However, the talented daughter at home panicked. The shoddy follow-spoons of our works made her the target of online criticism. Looking at the computer screen in front of me, the novel was coming to an end. In my past life, after this work was put on the shelves through my account, it immediately gained millions of views. It was even adapted into a movie and became well known across the country. But now, I don't plan to follow the original storyline. I stopped and sighed, following the memories of my past life. I counted the minutes and seconds and searched the internet as I remembered. Sure enough, at 603 p.m., a novel was put on an inconspicuous website. My hands trembling, I clicked in. Even though I knew the ending, I was still shocked. The content of this work was almost the same as mine, and each part was published 3 days earlier than mine. It also only lacked an ending. My heart skipped a beat. If I were to put this novel on the shelves as I did in my past life, I would step into an endless abyss. Have you finished writing the ending? The editor's message came. Check for typos in the ending and upload it quickly. I can't wait for it to be on the shelves. Even through the message, I could feel the editor's eagerness. In my past life, both of us had high hopes for this book and were looking forward to its huge success. Dear, I'm sorry. I need to make major revisions to this book. A bitter smile tugged at the corner of my mouth. But it's already perfect. The editor was a bit stunned and confused. Trust me. I can make it even more perfect. A smile appeared on my lips, and a new storyline had already formed in my mind. I looked at the screen, right-clicked on the original file, and moved it to the recycle bin. I must draw ya, the wrongly adopted fake daughter of the Serafina family. On the day the real daughter, Serafina, came back, I had no attachment and wanted to return to our respective positions as agreed. However, my parents, out of consideration for the affection over the years, kept me at home. The reason was simple. Over the years, I had brought them various honors. More importantly, when my parents' business failed, it was my writing savings and scholarships that helped them through the difficult times. I was known as the talented girl of the Gu family and became the face of the noble family in the circle. But I never expected that the real daughter, who was brought back from outside, would accuse me of plagiarizing her works when I was at the peak of my honor. In front of everyone, she projected the color palette file and tearfully accused me of plagiarizing her article. The characters and the main plot line happened to be similar to hers. In an instant, all the reporters swarmed towards me like sharks smelling blood. Her novel was published 3 days earlier than mine. Although it had low popularity and childish, unpolished writing, the storyline and character settings were generally similar to mine. I was abandoned and outside since I was a child and didn't receive as good an education as my sister. But this is also the painstaking effort of my every stroke. You have fans and resources. You've occupied my place for so many years and achieved so much glory. I'm just an insignificant person. But you can't suck my blood like this. A flood of scolding voices came. She's really shameless. It's not enough for her to steal someone else's parents, and she also has to steal their work, just because her sister has no connections and resources. She should be bullied like this? Evil capitalism. Fortunately, Harinza filled my answer. Our Serafina is the real daughter. She's really in trouble this time. I support Serafina. She must bring down this plagiarist. In an instant, there were countless voices on the internet condemning me. I sighed. Because of this book, I got trapped in a self-proving quagmire. But no matter how I tried to prove myself, the other side always took the initiative. I tried to create one story after another. But every time I published, I could find traces in her posts 3 days ago. It was as if she could predict everything about me. Our Serafina is a talented woman. She can not only write books, but also write songs and paint. Who is real and who is fake is clear at a glance. Later, I found that her works on the internet were not limited to literature. There were even music and paintings. The new album Stars, by Orion, the rising star in the music world, and the painting Sunflower, by Lou Mine, the genius in the art world, all had the same elements as the song Serafina casually recorded online and the graffiti she posted on Instagram. And Serafina's works were published exactly 3 days before theirs. These 3 days were enough to make it impossible for the three of us to defend ourselves. In an instant, Serafina became a talented girl, and everyone thought that our works were based on hers. But we were smeared with dirt and could never clear our names. My parents and brother drove me out of the house and left me to fend for myself. The huge amount of compensation and the overwhelming slander forced me to the rooftop. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day before submitting the manuscript. This time, I must not make the same mistake. I deleted the original content and wrote a new draft. The story in the book was constructed again, and it was more exciting than before. But when it came to the ending, I hesitated to write. However, I found that before I could write the ending, Serafina actually published another new book on the website. The content she serialized before, except for the slightly different writing style and character settings, had a storyline that was once again almost the same as mine. And her update frequency was exactly the same as mine. Only that each time she updated, it was still 3 days earlier than me. I couldn't help but feel creepy and searched the room for anything unusual. I checked the programs and the house, but found no surveillance. I forced myself to calm down, stopped preparing to write the ending, and walked out of the room. When I'm stuck with writing or unhappy, I like to open the fridge and have a drink to get a little tipsy. At this moment, my mind was in a mess, and I had to rely on alcohol to calm down. What was even weirder was that as long as I didn't publish, I couldn't find any trace of her work. Only after I updated would her work appear. But then I saw Serafina in the living room. She closed her computer and looked at me with a big smile. "Sister, it's so late. Aren't you going to sleep?" Just as I was about to say something, I heard a faint electronic voice. "Host, I still haven't found the ending of the novel updated on Astoria's account in the next 3 days on the internet for now. System, can only search for 3 days later? Can't it be longer?" "Yes. Host, being able to predict the future for 3 days is enough for you to be a genius in this world. After you update, I will help you temporarily block it. Only after she uploads will your content be visible." My heart skipped a beat. I could actually hear her thoughts. So Serafina had a cheating device. From their conversation, I learned everything that had happened. Since she was recognized and brought home, she had awakened this system. This system was equivalent to an internet search engine, and could search for all content within the next 3 days. I finally understood why she could predict in advance. For songs and paintings, she could only replicate them roughly. After all, Serafina didn't have a heavenly voice or a solid painting foundation. But for text, she could replicate it 1-to-1. That's why in my past life, my works received the most scolding. Looking at the works I had painstakingly created these days, I could only contact the editor and take them down in advance before trouble came to me. "Australia, what are you thinking? There's nothing wrong with this work at all. Why are you taking it down again? You took it down last time too. What's going on? Is it because I put too much pressure on you by urging you to finish the manuscript? Actually, you don't have to be so perfectionist." I sighed and forwarded Serafina's website to the editor. Sure enough, the other side fell silent. "Your writing skills are better than hers. If it weren't for the plot we built together, I'd be confused. There's no way. She took the initiative first, so we have to admit it. She sighed, also feeling helpless. I'll take a break for a while. I smiled helplessly. I knew there were too many uncontrollable factors in all this, and I had to figure it out. A few days later, in the morning, I was leisurely having breakfast at the dining table, enjoying the pleasant time. And I saw Serafina coming down with a heavy heart, a hint of panic in her eyes. "Sister, haven't you been writing recently?" she asked with a smile, her tone tinged with a bit of probing. I listened to her mental calculation with the system and smiled, nodding. "I've been a bit tired recently and plan to take a break." Her face changed slightly, and a hint of amusement flashed across my eyes. The ending of my story was still far from coming. But now Serafina was very anxious. The countless messages from fans urging her to update made her worried. If she suddenly stopped updating, she would face huge compensation. She had only one choice: to write the ending herself. I smiled. I had left countless plot holes in the front. If someone else rashly wrote the ending, it would only seem abrupt and clumsy. Nevertheless, this work was finally selected for film and television adaptation. The plot in the front was wonderful, and the ending could be considered a minor flaw compared to the whole. But smart readers would understand everything. No one but the author could pick up the foreshadowing in the story. I smiled, looking at Serafina on the podium, a hint of coldness flashing through my eyes. The Dream of the Red Chamber is such a voluminous book. There is a deep divide between the first 80 chapters and the last 40 chapters. No matter how good Gaui was, he could never replace Kaozukyuin. There are no two identical leaves in the world. Under the spotlight was Serafina's smiling face. She looked at me with a hint of significance in her eyes. Obviously, she had noticed that I had hastily contacted the editor to take down the previously updated work. She looked at me with a beaming smile, as if praising me for being sensible. "I want to thank my sister. She gave me countless inspirations. Unfortunately, my sister's work died halfway. My sister writes under the pen name Ryan. If you have the chance, you can support her works. Her account is..." She looked at me, her eyes brimming with viciousness. I knew that even though she had reaped the benefits, she still wanted to push me into the abyss. Unfortunately, heading for Feldway, fate sent me back, giving me a chance to rise from the dead. However, Serafina can only plagiarize. She doesn't truly understand the characters in her works, nor does she try to feel the emotions. She isn't even a qualified reader. People aren't fools. She's destined not to get what she wants. I know Ryan very well. I'm her fan. She had many excellent works a few years ago. Don't mention it. The book Ryan newly launched some time ago was suddenly taken off the shelves. I read it. It seems that the character settings are similar to Cotton's book. But Ryan has a strong writing style. The beginning of the story is similar, but her mind is so convoluted that we can't predict the follow-up at all. Ryan is a perfectionist. Looking forward to her new work. I smiled. I'm the kind of crazy updater who saves drafts. I usually like to update in 2 or 3 installments after finishing writing. Fortunately, there is this 3-day rule in the system. Otherwise, I'd repeat the same mistakes. Hearing what the fans said, Serafina's face changed slightly on the podium, but she still maintained the smile on her face, though it was a bit stiff. A hint of mockery curved the corners of my mouth. Rome wasn't built in a day. All industries start from scratch. I didn't want to watch Serafina's false pretenses on the podium anymore, so I turned around and left the scene. When I reached the door, a hand grabbed me, and a cold male voice sounded. I remember clearly that in the past life the one standing on the podium to receive the award was you. Looking at the masked man and woman in front of me, I guessed their identities. "Let's talk somewhere else." Lu Mine took off her mask and said softly. I gently brushed Orion's hand away and nodded. "Sorry." Seemingly realizing his rudeness, Orion's ears turned slightly red. "I think we're all the same. Coming back to the present from the future." I stirred my coffee and took a sip. The bitterness of the hot Americano, with the rich fragrance of coffee, is very suitable for us code workers who have an upside-down day and night schedule. I've been secretly following her works. I found that whenever I finish a painting and upload it, Her account will inexplicably show a post from 3 days ago. The works in it are simply shoddy reproductions. But 3 days ago. No matter how we searched, we couldn't find them. But the one who posts first seems to be in the right. I took a sip of coffee and said calmly. I knew the system had taken certain measures to block her data. Orion looked at me with unwillingness in his eyes. He clenched his fists tightly. Was there really no way? Music was his dream since childhood. And he didn't want to give up at all. I saw that the ice cubes in his cup were exaggerated numerous. In the past life, he was forced to drink boiling water by a group of people, scalding his throat. I sighed and asked the waiter to change his drink to a warm latte. Ice can also hurt the throat, I explained to him calmly. Lumine's eyes were red. She wanted to pick up the coffee cup in her hand. But it slipped, and coffee splashed all over the floor. The sound of the broken cup made her couldn't help but squat on the ground and tremble. The pain of having her tendons severed in the past life made her unable to let go for a long time. I could only help her to a nearby chair and ask the waiter who came to clean up the mess for a cup of hot water. I can't stop painting, she murmured. My mother has worn herself out to support my painting studies. If I don't paint to make money, she'll die. She couldn't help but murmur. In the past life, after being accused of plagiarism, Lumine could only end up painting portraits on the street. Serafina's extreme supporters tore up her paintings. Her mother, dragging her sick body, protected her daughter. But she was pushed down by the fans who couldn't tell right from wrong, and had a recurrence of her old illness. However, the people nearby were indifferent and refused to help her. Instead, they even made things worse. She could only watch her mother pass away. She wanted to seek an explanation from Serafina, but before she could get close to Serafina, she was caught and had her tendon severed. Is there really no way? A hint of despair filled their eyes. Australia, are you really willing to accept this? Orion's eyes turned red, and he roared with unwillingness. I sighed. What's done is done. What can I do? It can't be changed. No. Wait. Suddenly I thought of something and jumped up. The past can't be changed. It's already settled. But the future can be changed by us. And the moment to change the future is. Suddenly their eyes were filled with ecstasy as if they saw a glimmer of hope in despair. It's now. I rented a villa and moved in with the three of them. And medical expenses for Lumine's mother were not a problem for me now. Consider it my investment. In the future, the covers and illustrations of my new books will be drawn by you. I smiled holding her hand. We'll stay here in peace these days. Oh, right. I whispered in their ears for a long time and then the three of us looked at each other and smiled. I started several new books. Similarly Orion and Lumine also started new works. But my books were only half written. Orion's song only had one section and Lumine's paintings only had sketches. All the works were unfinished products and also baits to lure Serafina. Serafina's account was updated again. Her works received praise again and countless people flooded into the comment section urging her to update. Cotton is simply a god. Versatile and talented. Truly a gifted woman. Rian is only good at writing. But Cotton is good at everything. The #1 talented woman in the capital. It must be Cotton. Cotton is also good looking. Isn't there anyone who likes her appearance? Ah, worthy of being our national rich girl. Love it. For a while Serafina became famous and became a synonym for a talented woman in the circle. The status of the Serafina family rose steadily. Once Australia had brought them back to life and now Serafina made them well known. With honors and spotlights Serafina used a forced smile to cover up her inner unease. At this moment inside the villa play a pair of a pass bomb. The comfortable life made us happy and filled us with more inspiration. It's time to close the net. Everyone. The way to break the situation is actually very simple. The system Serafina has can see the content 3 days later. So it's simple. Just search the system for the content 3 days into the future. However, there is a common problem with internet searches. They always tend to show more content from accounts with more exposure. Since Serafina has targeted the three of us, we have to get involved ourselves. People always like to focus on familiar accounts first. Are you really going to do this? The tones of my editor and Orion and Lumine's agents were all filled with incompression. Aaron. Recently, Serafina's account has started updating again, and she even launched many new works. But unfortunately, there were many cases of her works starting strong but ending weak. What's wrong with Cotton? I feel she's very strange recently. As if she's a different person. Every beginning is so attractive. But after reading for a while, I always feel something is off. It doesn't seem like it's written by the same person. Yes. The same goes for the songs. The beginning is the best. But when it comes to the part where the emotions should rise, it's dull. Her paintings are also strange. The sketches are full of imagination. But the finished products lack vitality. What should we do next? Seeing Serafina falling into the trap step by step, Lumine and Orion's eyes were filled with a hint of fear. Have you noticed? Recently, Orion, Lumine, and even Ryan's works only have a beginning. And they seem similar to Serafina's. Could it be? Impossible. Look, Cotton always posts first. How could she take their works? And Cotton's works are complete. Even if there's any plagiarism, it should be them plagiarizing. Seeing these comments, my heart sank. A bitter smile also appeared in Orion and Lumine's eyes. So the system in the novel really exists. Unfortunately, this isn't a parallel world. These are all their hard work, but Serafina, knowing this, chose to deprive others of their efforts to nourish herself. I knew that Serafina was getting anxious. My parents called urging me to go home. Your sister misses you very much. When will you come back? How could they not notice that Serafina plagiarized my works? The couple and the Serafina family are as shrewd as monkeys. I smiled calmly. Mom, didn't you already cut off relations with me? We're all family. How can you take angry words seriously? I looked at the clearly defined and officially stamped agreement in my hand. Yeah, we're all family. When Serafina stood on the podium to receive the award, their attitude towards me took a sharp turn. The biological daughter could create more value, and I, an outsider, could no longer do anything for them. So different from the past life, they were extremely eager for my departure. And they gave me all these restrictive terms. I only got back less than 1% of all my assets. We raised you for so many years. This is only natural. Looking at this shameless family, I couldn't help but laugh in anger. Who raised whom? If you want to leave, you can't take what doesn't belong to you. I looked at the smile in Serafina's eyes behind them and turned to leave. I hope they can hold on to things that don't belong to them. The mines we've laid are about to explode. The end of traffic is never metaphysics but science. A curl covered in dust is still a pearl. Regarding Serafina's surveillance, we chose to create new accounts. What we post on our main accounts are all drafts. But our serious works are posted on little-known small accounts. The things Serafina can search for oriented are limited. The internet is vast, and she won't notice that inconspicuous corner. Just as she lured me into the trap. Works released from new accounts will all go through a period of precipitation at the beginning. But netizens aren't fools. I can distinguish and see clearly. People are innately drawn to beauty. The longer the wine is brewed, the fragrant it will be when opened. So when our 3 small accounts were discovered, endless crises awaited Serafina. At the beginning, we gave up the support of traffic because we believed that good wine needs no bush. The bug of the system is easy to find. We just treated Serafina the way she treated us. Her system will remind her of the future updates of the subscribed accounts. Who would have thought that we chose to release the complete content on the small accounts as early as 3 days ago at this time? Ordinary people can't imagine that we would directly give up millions of traffic and choose to cultivate a new account. Sure enough, as we updated the drafts on our main accounts, the content hidden by her account was revealed again by the system. She crudely copied our drafts and posted them 3 days ago. I sighed as I watched her update, thinking that she really wouldn't let us go. Unfortunately, there were a lot of scolding comments under her works. Time will tell everything. Fine wine is mellow whilst our soup spoils. People began to realize something was wrong, and discerning netizens found our new identities. The truth came to light, and Serafina was faced with overwhelming doubts. The complete manuscripts of our small accounts were published 1 hour earlier than hers. Serafina panicked. My parents' calls came in like crazy. How much money do you want? Australia. You should quickly issue a statement saying it's all a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? A hint of sarcasm flashed in my eyes. In my past life, I begged my parents, saying it was a misunderstanding. I pleaded with them to give me a way out, but they said it was my just deserts. Yes, hadn't fulfilled my search. Just deserts. It's time for the retribution to fall on them. This blow put Serafina in a crisis. She was severely hit, but she wouldn't give up so easily. She targeted our new accounts again. Sure enough, when we launched new works, she started to make trouble again. Of course I knew she had opened the system once more. Our 2 new book signing events happened to be on the same day. The conversation between the system and her once again flooded into my mind. This time, however, she could only predict the content 1 day later. This time it seemed to cause her system to crash once. I didn't know what the purpose of this system was, but I knew I needed to solve it as soon as possible. Serafina was smart this time. She followed everything related to me, including our main and small accounts. Every day she mumbled to herself, searching for keywords about the next day in her mind over and over again. Unfortunately, the world is changing rapidly. No one can fully grasp the future, nor is it easy to change the past. What we can hold on to is always the present. Serafina's delusion of overriding big data and having a godlike perspective of the future is simply impossible. So as one after another of our alternate identities were exploded in front of her like bombs, her system finally crashed, saying, "Useless thing. Even with the ability to predict the future, you're still no good." She finally understood that some things can't be obtained by cheating. Now the voices of doubt about her on the internet are increasing. But she still has die-hard fans like my former Fiang Cassius. I hinted. Darkness flashed in my eyes. When the 3 of us were in despair, it was him who cut off our last hope, pulling the last straw of the camel. Suddenly a large number of online water army emerged and turned against us. When a drop of ink is dropped into clear water, it is not purified but concealed. When a large mass of ink is poured into clear water, it corrodes the whole. We won't be defeated by public opinion attacks this time, just like in the past life. At the emergency press conference, I heard the system urging her. Please quickly refute the female supporting role and complete the mission. Your future search range is only 1 hour now. If it reaches 0, the system will be unbound. I smiled and looked at Lumine and Orion beside me, whispering to them what I had heard. A flash of pleasure crossed Lumine and Orion's eyes. Leave it to us. Lumine walked up to Serafina with a big smile on her face. How about we paint again on the spot? Using the previous draft, Lumine said with a beaming smile. But I'm not ready yet. At the press conference, she looked at the reporters with a pale face. Her future search time range had been reduced to 1 hour. And this news report wouldn't be out until the press conference ended at the earliest. She simply couldn't search for Lumine's work to copy. Lumine looked at her with a smile, and her eyes picked up the brush and dipped it in ink. She could only follow Lumine's lead. Serafina seemed to be trying to delay, striving for one last chance for herself. But Lumine deliberately slowed down, painting 1 stroke after Serafina did. Needless to say, anyone with eyes could tell the result. The characters painted by Lumine were as graceful as a startled swan and as supple as a swimming dragon. But Serafina's was like a primary school student's doodle. Orion looked at her, then walked out with a smile. I'll also finish singing that song. When everyone was intoxicated by the heavenly voice and reluctantly woke up, they suddenly realized that this was a press conference, not a concert. Orion walked off the stage with a guitar, smiling. By then Serafina could hardly stand on her feet, and beads of sweat rolled down her face. In the previous life, Serafina achieved the full level upgrade of the system by sacrificing the 3 of us and seizing our luck. She could control the online content of the next year. As a result, she gained numerous opportunities and became a legend in both the business and art worlds. But in this life, the system abandoned and her 1 step earlier. Mission failed. System energy exhausted. The system will be forcefully detached in 5 seconds. Serafina was seen clutching her head in pain. No. Then a ball of light floated out of her mind. I smiled and pinched the ball of light with depleted energy in my hand. You can see me. A hint of human-like surprise flashed through the mechanical voice of the system. I smiled and held this fragile ball of light in my hand. Don't kill me. I can bind with you. I can let you foresee the future of this world. Don't you want wealth? Seeing me looking at it with a half smile, it finally confessed its origin. This is a world in a book, and the fake wealthy daughter and I are the daughters of luck in this world. Orion and Lumine are also obstacles in our way. There can only be 1 daughter of luck in a world. With this extra bit of luck, the system had the idea of taking it for itself. That's why they plotted to kill me. Unfortunately, it hadn't absorbed the luck yet and was extremely fragile at the moment. The moment I pinched it, I already knew why it was so afraid of me. Because both I and Serafina could sense its existence. There can only be one daughter of luck in a world. Now, with just a gentle squeeze from me, it would be reduced to ashes. I smiled, raised my hand, and crushed it. Amid the shrill sound, it turned to dust. "What's wrong with your hand?" Lu Mine beside me asked, worriedly, looking at the wound that suddenly appeared on my hand. "Why is it bleeding?" "It's okay. It's all over." I winked at her and smiled softly. Without the system, Serafina quickly became an ordinary person. Everything we had suffered online in the previous life was now overwhelming her. When the Serafina family came to me again, I waved the certificate in my hand. "Mom, Dad. You were the ones who wanted to part ways with me. Have you forgotten?" I looked at them and sneered. "I've already settled the money with you. When I left, I didn't take a single cent from these years. Don't worry. I'll also transfer you a regular amount of money, according to the current prices, in the future, as a way to repay your kindness of raising me." The Serafina family's parents had no choice. With everything written in black and white, they couldn't deny it. But it's easy to go from frugality to extravagance, but difficult to go from extravagance to frugality. The Serafina family, who were used to being extravagant, how could they get used to a poor life? I smiled, a hint of sarcasm flashing through my eyes. That's no longer my concern. Returning to poverty, having fulfilled my sigh. Serafina desperately clung to Cassius, wanting to become the wife of the Cassius family at all costs. The role of Mrs. Cassius is not something a fated woman like you can handle. Cassius wouldn't marry her now. He turned around high-profile lie and got engaged to another renowned lady from a noble family in the capital. I smiled. The wealthy families need a facade. A beautiful one. Without her halo, how could Serafina be worthy of being Mrs. Cassius? In the previous life, they were a perfect couple. But now there are constant disputes. "Cassius, you said you would love me." The Serafina family had to declare bankruptcy due to compensation. And the once talented Serafina became a cleaner in the mall. The debt collection during this period made her restless. She stared fixedly at Cassius. Her once beautiful face had aged with time. She blocked Cassius, praying for a bit of their past affection. How could Cassius pay attention to her? There were already other women by his side. When Serafina fell from the high-rise building of the mall, there was still disbelief on her face. The Cassius family lost an eldest son. But I knew that there were still many candidates for the eldest son of the Cassius family. I closed the news report and looked into the distance. Outside the door, Lu Mine and Orion walked in, smiling. "We finished the illustrations for your new book, as promised. I'll sing the theme song when it's made into a drama," Orion said eagerly. He liked the content of this book so much that he insisted on writing the theme song himself. I nodded, smiling brightly. Orion, Lu Mine, and I all looked out of the window simultaneously. In the distance, the morning glow filled the sky. I thought the sun tomorrow would surely be extraordinarily dazzling.